NHL news and notes of December 10th, 2018. Let's get to the first part of the news here. Zach Hyman of the Toronto Maple Leafs was given a 2-game suspension in which the Department of Player Safety of the NHL called a late predatory hit on Charlie McAvoy of the Boston Bruins. That was in the game on Saturday. Hyman has said since that, he's not going to change the way he plays. That's, I want to say this is Hyman's third year with the Leafs, and I've seen him his whole professional career, which includes in the NHL, and he's not a dirty player. I totally agree that there had to be some sort of discipline because that was a definitive late hit on McAvoy, and I'm sure he knows that as well. I hope not to see that in his game again. But he's I wouldn't necessarily call him a sandpaper kind of player, but he's definitely a grinder. He's that guy who goes in and digs pucks out of the corners, cycles the puck, gets in front of the net, that kind of thing. And he's never had any issues with the Department of Player Safety before. So I'll just chuck this up to frustration because the Leafs can't seem to win in Boston. The Bruins just have their number there. It's amazing. In any case, next piece of business, also with the Toronto Maple Leafs, they signed Calle Rosen tonight. He's a 24-year-old left-handed defenseman playing in the NHL right now. He's originally from Sweden. They brought him in last year, I want to say. And a lot of teams were trying. I think he was like Rookie of the Year at one point. In the Swedish league, and a lot of teams were after him. The Leafs landed him. That's kind of his history. He's had a couple tryouts, had a few games with the big boys, but hasn't stuck so far. But he's looking really good. But in any case, the contract is a 2-year deal worth an average annual value of $750,000 a year. Now, this is especially important because there's probably a lot of likelihood he could move in up to with the big club, at least for the starting of next year at the bottom pairing on the left side. Because of Jake Gardiner, as you all may know, his contract ends this year. He'll be a UFA. Leafs probably won't have the money to sign him, and I could easily see, unless he takes a major discount, which I don't think is going to happen, but he's a 60-point player, or he at least was last season. But I could see him walking Travis Dermott moving from the bottom left pairing to the second pairing in Jake Gardiner's spot, and then Cal Rosen moving into that bottom left spot. So, but let's get on with some of his stats. This season in 24 AHL games, he's got 19 points as a D-man. That's pretty good. He's very much a smooth skating, play-making defenseman who's really learning more and more about his D game and responsibilities in the AHL over the past couple seasons or so. So that when he comes up next year, which will likely happen, he'll be much more responsible in the D zone. Some more AHL stats. Last year, he was part of the Calder Cup winning team. He was heavily used. You could argue he was one of their top defensemen during the playoffs as well. And in 22, I'm trying to read my own writing here. In 62 games last season with the AHL Marlies, he had 22 points. And in 16 games in the playoffs in which they won the Calder Cup, he had 11 points. Yeah, some pretty good numbers for him. So keep your eye out for him, especially next season. Next up, we literally just before I shot this, maybe an hour before, there was a trade between the Anaheim Ducks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know I'm bringing them up, third piece of news in a row. But the Anaheim traded right shot defenseman, 6 foot, 190 pound, 32-year-old AHLer Steven Oleski to the Leafs. He had 2 assists in 15 games in the AHL with the Gulls. Last year, overall, excuse me, in about, I want to say in 73 games that he spent in the NHL, but mixed between Washington and Pittsburgh and so on, he's had 20 points in 73 NHL games. So he's headed to Toronto. I don't see him cracking the Toronto lineup. I think he's going straight to the Marlies, but we'll see what happens. Going the other way was 33-year-old right winger / centerman Adam Cracknell, who's 6'3", 220 pounds, big boy. In last year in the NHL, he spent time between Dallas and New York Rangers. He had 0 points in 5 games. In the AHL last season, in 69 games, he had 51 points, which is, hey, that's pretty good. He was also minus 32. I know the plus minus thing isn't, it's debatable either how much that means, but minus 32. In any case, let's move on, because that was just basically a minor league trade. We'll probably learn more about that later on. St. Louis Blues have waived backup goaltender Chad Johnson. The 32-year-old was on a 1-year deal worth $1.75 million. He was placed on waivers. He was 2-6-0 with a 3.54 goals against average, a .884 save percentage in 10 appearances. St. Louis has basically, in that time, in the last 14 games, they've lost 10 of them. And so they've called up Jordan Binnington from the AHL affiliate to be the new backup. We'll see how that goes. Jake Allen seems to be turning a corner here. He's starting to play better. A little side note there. In practice today, for the St. Louis Blues, defenseman Bortuzzo and forward Sanford had a fight. I was all over Twitter. There was footage of it. You can check it out. It was more like Bortuzzo beating on Sanford, really. I think he hit him like 3-4 times before some of the coaches and stuff stepped in, and he definitely stunned Sanford as well. So I want to say Maroon thought, they gave you a typical response, they're sick of losing, they're upset, this is good, that they're showing emotion, that's what, some of the coaches and teammates were saying. Maroon said he loved it. He goes, maybe that's just me, but that shows guys are emotionally invested. Moving on, the next piece of, here we have, from the Vancouver Canucks, Sam Gagner was waived again. Now, I believe one of the major reasons he was waived was Josh Levo, who was traded to the Maple Leafs not too long ago. And, he's playing on that first line, so maybe he just, he bumped everyone down. And because Sam Gagner is the only veteran that they can place on waivers now without losing him, without having to go through waivers now, he can be sent to the minors without having to clear waivers. He was the unlucky guy who left. He spent, after being recalled, he was up for about 2 weeks. And I have some stats here. In 15 AHL games with the Toronto Marlies, because he had asked if he was going to go to the minors, he'd be sent to Toronto because he had family there. So that's which is where he'll probably go again. And the Marlies have nothing but great things to say about him. But in 15 games with the Marlies this season, he's had 7 goals and 8 assists. So pretty good. In when he came across to Vancouver, it was after the 2016-17 season in which he had 50 points for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then Vancouver signed him to a 3-year deal worth 3.5 AAV, average annual value, English, average annual value. And last year he had 10 goals and 21 assists. So a bit of a lack of production there. I know he had a few points in the 2 weeks he was up. That's just a bummer for him. And I know that Vancouver now might be trying to at least move him to an NHL team that could use him. So we'll see what happens maybe even before the holiday trade cutoff. I think it's December 19th. We'll see if he gets moved. New York Islanders, they recall Josh Hosang from the AHL Bridgeport Sound Tigers. Now, he's had, in 26 games so far this season for the Tigers, he's had 2 goals and 20 assists for 22 points. Not bad at all. In 43 NHL games, Josh Hosang has had 6 goals and 16 assists. This is big news in the sense that he's quite a polarizing player. If you followed his history, I know New York Islander fans, I don't have to tell you about that. It started off with him being late as a rookie for practice and training camp and such, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And he's been quite vocal in the media about not being happy with the Islanders, with them, not calling him up or sending him back down, etc., etc. I'm not going to get too much into it, but I know a lot of eyeballs are going to be on him as he gets an opportunity. I'm not certain if he was playing tonight versus Pittsburgh. Then maybe he'll start the next game, but I can't confirm that at this moment because the games are literally being played right now. I believe the Pittsburgh and New York Islander game that was on today just finished, and Pittsburgh won in the shootout. Next up, we have here the Arizona Coyotes. They won't seek goalie help after their GM said that Ranta, their number 1 goalie, will likely be out for the rest of the season. He underwent surgery on Sunday. On what? I do not know. But now, 28-year-old backup Kemper, he's day-to-day at the moment, but it looks like the number 1 position is his to lose. He's had, so far this season, he's had a .914 save percentage with a record of 4-5-2. And then in the last little while, though, while he's been hurt, Aiden Hill from the AHL was called up, and he's been really good. Surprisingly good. He had a point in how many games? In 7 games with the Coyotes, he's had 4 wins, and he's had a .939 save percentage. I've seen some of these games. He's looked amazing. So look for, I know Kemper has more of a track record, but look for Aiden Hill to give Kemper a run for the money. Maybe they'll even platoon both of them for the rest of the season if Ranta remains out. And Coyotes also claimed Calvin Pickard off waivers from the Philadelphia Flyers not too long ago. They haven't played him. I mean, he's had dreadful numbers so far this season with Philly, but he's been backing up Hill so far while Kemper has been sitting out. Next piece of news, the Carolina Hurricanes recalled Scott Darling, the 29-year-old goalie, was placed on waivers and went down to the minors 9 days ago. And in 5 AHL games, he's had 3 wins and a .911 save percentage. In the NHL this season, he's been 2-4-1 with a .892 save percentage in 7 appearances. Now he's signed on a contract for $4.15 million until the year to the season 2020-21. And I believe the only reason they called him up is because Curtis McElhinney is hurt at the moment. So, yeah, we'll see what he does with it. Next up, let's talk about the NHL 3 Stars of the Week. We can finish up on a nice little note there. Number 1 star is, not surprisingly enough, is Vancouver Canucks' Elias Pettersson. In 3 games, he had 2 goals and 6 assists for 8 points, including 2 game-winning goals. He now has 15 goals and 15 assists for 30 points in 26 games. This kid is on fire. Unbelievable. He also has, so far this season, he's got 4 game-winning goals, which places him 4th overall in the NHL in that statistic. Number 2 is Tampa Bay Lightning goalie Louis Dominique. He was 3-0-0 this week with a 1.33 goals against average and a .957 save percentage. I know I've been giving him a little bit of heck the last little while because Tampa Bay Tampa Bay is basically just outscoring teams. Since Vasilevsky has gone down with a fractured foot, he looks to be out another 2-3 weeks, by the way. But this last week, Dominique has got to give him credit. He's been doing really well. The 26-year-old Quebecer is now has a record of 13-4-0 with a 2.95 goals against and a .906 save percentage overall. So I'll kind of temper my my joy for him in this because of those stats. But he had a great week. He did have a really good week, and that's been in 17 appearances overall for him this season. Number 3 NHL Star of the Week is left winger Johnny Gaudreau. In 4 games, he's had 2 goals and 6 assists for 8 points. The 25-year-old New Jerseyan is 7th in the NHL with, in terms of points, was 12 goals and 27 assists for 39 points altogether in 31 games. Funny, I've heard especially on because he plays for the Flames, whenever they're playing an American team, multiple times have I heard the American commentators refer to him as a Canadian, which I think is funny because he's from Jersey. You can't, I don't say you can't get more American than Jersey, but they're calling a Jersey kid Canadian, which I find a little amusing. He also didn't he copyright Johnny Hockey a few years ago, I want to say as well. So maybe that has thrown them all off. But in any case, there are 4 games on tonight. Some of them are done. Actually, 3 of them are already done. And we'll talk about them later tonight. I'll have a game review for you. But it's the Rangers versus the Lightning, the Los Angeles Kings versus the Detroit Red Wings, the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the New York Islanders, and New Jersey Devils. Speaking of New Jersey Devils, or speaking of New Jersey, they're playing the San Jose Sharks as I speak. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on today's news. Hit like if you like this video. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you happen to have any Hockey Geek friends, please don't feel shy about sharing. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.